AITA for walking out when my girlfriend turned our dinner party into a public trial? My name is Ethan. I'm 31, and I live in Portland, Oregon, in a second-floor apartment above a coffee shop that starts grinding beans every morning before my alarm even gets a chance to ruin my day. I work as an audio tech for a small event company, which means I spend a lot of my life coiling XLR cables, taping down cords so strangers don't trip, and explaining to grown adults that a microphone works better when it is near their mouths. For almost 3 years, I was with Marissa. She was 29, worked in marketing, and had that kind of brightness that made people lean toward her without realizing it. She knew what to say at brunch, how to pose in photos without looking like she cared, and how to turn a regular Tuesday into something that looked good on Instagram. When we first got together, I admired that. I was quieter. I liked good sound checks, clean invoices, and getting home before midnight. She made life feel sharper, more colorful. We lived together in Buckman, close enough to Kearns that people argued about which neighborhood we were technically in. Our apartment had old wood floors that creaked in the hallway, windows that rattled when the rain got sideways, and a kitchen too small for 2 people to move around in without bumping hips. We had a shared lease, a security deposit neither of us wanted to lose, a half-dead basil plant on the kitchen windowsill, and a Sunday habit of buying too much food from Trader Joe's because we kept believing we were the kind of couple who meal prepped. At the beginning, we were good. Not perfect, but good in the way real couples are good. We went hiking out near Forest Park and argued over whether a trail was moderate or secretly a punishment. We ate cheap Thai takeout on rainy nights and watched renovation shows while pretending we knew anything about plumbing. She left sticky notes on my lunch containers that said things like, "Don't forget sauce," or "You are legally required to eat a vegetable." I fixed the loose handle on her favorite mug. She made fun of my old black hoodie, but always wore it when she was cold. That was why I stayed as long as I did. I wasn't staying for some fantasy. I was staying because I remembered real things. The first cracks were small enough that I could explain them away. Marissa liked to talk things through. That was what she called it. At first, I thought it was healthy. If I forgot to text her during a long event, she wanted to talk about how it made her feel. If I came home tired and quiet, she wanted to unpack whether I was shutting her out. I didn't mind having those conversations. I loved her. I wanted to understand her. But after a while, our private issues stopped staying private. One Sunday, I got stuck at a wedding setup in Lake Oswego because the venue's in-house sound system kept cutting out. I texted Marissa at 5:12 p.m. Running late. Audio issue. I'm sorry. I'll grab dinner on the way home. She replied with a thumbs up. When I got home, there were 4 Trader Joe's bags on the counter, half unpacked. The oat milk was sweating through the paper bag. Marissa was sitting at the table with her phone face down beside her. I said I was sorry. I told her, setting down the takeout. She gave me a tired smile. It's not about dinner, Ethan. What is it about? It's about feeling like I can't count on you. I apologized again. I meant it. Work had run late. It happened. But the next day, one of her friends made a joke in the group chat. "Talia, hope everyone survived Sunday grocery abandonment." Then another friend, Ben, added, "Ethan versus emotional labor, round 12. I stared at my phone in the break room at work while Jordan, my coworker, ate a breakfast burrito over a rack case. "What's your face doing?" he asked. I showed him the messages. He read them, chewed slowly, and said, "That's weird. It's just a joke. Is it funny?" I didn't answer. When I brought it up to Marissa, she waved it off while rinsing spinach in the sink. "It's not that deep, babe. I was just venting." To everyone, there are friends. That doesn't mean they need a play-by-play. She turned the water off harder than necessary. So now I'm not allowed to have support? That was how it usually went. I raised the smallest concern, and suddenly I was arguing against her right to have feelings. So I backed off. There were more moments like that. An Instagram caption under a photo of her holding coffee in bed, learning to pour into myself when others forget to show up. A brunch where she told the table, lightly and with a laugh, that I needed a calendar invite to be emotionally present. A game night where Nate, a photographer we both knew from local events, said, "Careful, Ethan, Marissa might put you on a performance improvement plan," and everyone laughed like it had been rehearsed. Nate was around more often that winter. He shot brand events, nonprofit galas, weddings, anything with decent lighting and a budget. He was good-looking in a casual, expensive camera way, always wearing beanies that looked too clean for Portland weather. I didn't think he and Marissa were having some dramatic secret relationship. It wasn't that simple. He just liked being near attention, and Marissa liked being understood by people who didn't have to pay rent with her. Whenever I felt uncomfortable, I talked myself out of it. She's social, I thought. I'm private. We just handle stress differently. Then came the dinner. It was a Thursday night in March, raining the way it does in Portland when the sky seems personally committed to making everyone's jeans damp. I got home around 6 p.m., carrying a small bag of groceries and a box of replacement batteries for work. The coffee shop downstairs was closing, and the smell of espresso and wet pavement followed me up the stairs. Marissa was at the kitchen counter, chopping cilantro with her laptop open beside her. I invited a few people over Saturday, she said. For what? A relationship reset. I paused with the fridge door open. Eh, what? She kept chopping. I think we need support. Not therapy. Just people who love us helping us communicate. I looked at her carefully. She didn't look nervous. She looked prepared. Who's coming? Talia, Ben, Priya, Nate. Maybe Lauren. Nate. He's our friend. He's your work event friend. She put the knife down. That tone is exactly why I think this would be helpful. I almost said no. I should have. But at that point, I still believed relationships were built by showing up, even to things that made you uncomfortable. I thought refusing would look like I didn't care. More than that, I thought maybe I really had been missing something. Maybe I was defensive. Maybe hearing it from other people would help. So I said, okay, but I don't want to be ambushed. Marissa's expression softened immediately. She came over and touched my arm. It's not an ambush. It's a safe space. On Saturday, she cleaned the apartment like someone important was coming. She moved the basil plant from the windowsill to the table, even though it looked more like a warning than decoration. She lit a candle that smelled like cedar and orange peel. She made pasta, roasted vegetables, and a salad with walnuts because Priya was trying to be more mindful about protein. I vacuumed, took out the recycling, and set extra chairs around our small dining table. People arrived carrying wine, seltzer, and the kind of nervous energy you feel in a room before bad news. Talia hugged Marissa first, then me. Her grip was quick. She wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Ben said, "Hey, man," in a voice that sounded too serious for a dinner party. Nate came in last with a bottle of red wine and a camera bag still over his shoulder. Work ran late, he said, though no one had asked. Dinner started normal enough. We talked about the rain, parking, a new restaurant on Division, someone's terrible landlord. But every time I started to relax, I noticed little things. Priya checking her phone under the table. Ben glancing at Marissa before asking me a question. Talia pressing her lips together like she was trying not to speak. By dessert, Marissa set down her fork and took a breath. I'm grateful everyone came, she said. I know this is vulnerable, but Ethan and I have been struggling, and I think accountability matters. The room went quiet. I felt heat climb up my neck. Marissa, I thought we were just talking. We are talking. She smiled gently, but her eyes didn't match it. With support. Ben leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We all love you, Ethan, but maybe tonight you should just listen. That sentence landed hard because it didn't sound like Ben. It sounded like something someone had told him to say. I put my napkin on the table. Okay, I can listen, but I'd like to understand what I'm listening to. Priya gave me a sympathetic look. Can you explain why Marissa feels alone while living with you? I looked at Marissa. Do you feel alone? Her eyes watered instantly, but no tears fell. I've said this so many times. When she blinked. I wasn't trying to trap her. I genuinely wanted an example. But the second I asked, the air changed. Nate shifted in his chair. Talia looked down at her plate. Ben sighed like I had disappointed him. Marissa said, this is what I mean. You always need evidence before you care. I took a slow breath. I'm asking because I do care. Nate spoke up. Sometimes asking for examples is a way to avoid accountability. I looked at him. Sometimes examples are how people understand what they did wrong. That was the first moment Marissa looked annoyed instead of hurt. It was quick, a tiny tightening around her mouth, but I saw it. The questions kept coming. Why did Marissa have to carry the emotional labor of the relationship? Why did I prioritize work over connection? Why did I make her feel like she had to earn basic affection? Had I considered that my calmness was actually avoidance? Some of it hurt because it wasn't completely invented. I did work late. I did get quiet when I was tired. I did sometimes need time before I could talk about feelings. But the version of me being described at that table felt like a character based loosely on my worst moments and edited by someone who needed a villain. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't walk out. I asked for specifics. When did I refuse affection? What shared bill did I ignore? What conversation did I shut down? The more specific I got, the more vague Marissa became. You know what you did. That's not the point. I shouldn't have to make a spreadsheet of my pain. At one point, Talia quietly said, maybe we should slow down. Marissa looked at her so sharply that Talia went silent. The dinner ended badly, but not loudly. That almost made it worse. People hugged Marissa. They told me they hoped I would sit with it. Nate put a hand on her shoulder in our doorway and said, you deserve softness. I stood by the sink, scraping pasta into the trash, feeling like I had been publicly reviewed and found defective. After everyone left, Marissa leaned against the counter with her arms crossed. Well, she said. Well, what? Are you going to say anything? I feel like tonight was planned without me. Her face hardened. That's your takeaway? My takeaway is that our friends came prepared with talking points. They came prepared because they care. About us, or about the story you told them? She laughed once, cold and short. You always make yourself the rational one. I slept on the couch that night, not because she asked me to, but because the bedroom felt too small for both of us. Rain hit the living room windows in uneven taps. The coffee shop downstairs started grinding beans at 5:40 a.m., and I was already awake. The next week was strange. Marissa acted wounded but calm, like someone waiting for an apology she had already scheduled. The group chat went quiet except for a few careful messages. Priya, we're just worried about the two of you. Ben, hope you're both taking space. Nate didn't text the group. He posted a black and white photo of rain on glass with the caption, some people confuse silence with peace. I muted him. Jordan noticed something was off at work before I said anything. We were setting up for a corporate mixer at a brewery in the Pearl District, running cables along a wall, while a florist argued with a caterer over table height. You look like you got audited by a yoga studio, he said. I told him about the dinner. He listened without interrupting, which for Jordan was rare. When I finished, he said, that's not communication. That's a panel discussion where the audience already picked a side. I keep wondering if I'm missing something. Maybe you are, he said. But people who want to fix things don't need witnesses for every flaw. I carried that sentence around for days. The twist came at a charity fundraiser the following Friday. Marissa's company was helping with the event, a fundraiser for an arts education nonprofit at a hotel ballroom downtown. My company handled sound. It was a standard setup, 2 wireless handhelds for speeches, for lavalier mics for the panel, a room mic near the stage for ambient pickup, and a small mixer tucked behind a pipe-in drape wall. I was there with Jordan, both of us dressed in black, which is the unofficial uniform of people who are supposed to be invisible while making everyone else look competent. Marissa arrived around 3 p.m. with her marketing team. She looked polished in a cream blazer, hair pinned back, carrying a clipboard and talking into her phone. When she saw me, she gave me a professional smile, the kind you give a coworker you don't like, but might need later. Hey, she said. Hey, can we not be weird tonight? I'm here to work. Good. That was it. The event went fine until the panel rehearsal. One of the lav mics had a faint buzz, probably from a battery pack rubbing against a necklace or a bad frequency. After the room cleared, I put on headphones and checked the recorded test channels. We recorded short samples during setup for troubleshooting, nothing unusual. The venue required clean audio for their recap video, and everyone on stage had been told we were testing mics. I expected to hear panelists counting to 10, chair noise, maybe Jordan muttering about the gain levels. Instead, I heard Marissa. At first, I didn't even understand what I was hearing. Her voice came through the room mic, a little distant, but clear enough. She must have been standing near the stage behind the drape, talking to Talia while the room was mostly empty. Talia said, I don't know, Marissa. Saturday felt intense. Marissa sighed. It needed to be. He doesn't react unless there's pressure. He looked blindsided. That was the point. My hands went still on the mixer. Talia lowered her voice. You said it was to help you two communicate. It was to make him break in front of witnesses, Marissa said. If he snapped or admitted he's been checked out, then no one questions why I'm done. There was a pause. The audio picked up the soft clink of glassware somewhere in the ballroom. Talia said, "In the apartment?" I already asked Caleb what it takes to remove someone from the lease. If Ethan looks like the problem, he'll leave quietly. I can keep the place, keep the deposit applied, and not have everyone acting like I just traded up. Marissa. What? I'm tired. I've carried the story long enough. Then Nate's voice came in, closer than I expected. You sure you want to say all that near-event equipment? Marissa laughed. Please. Ethan's not recording my life. He barely notices it. I took the headphones off. For a few seconds, I just sat there behind the mixer while the ballroom staff rolled carts across the carpet and a volunteer arranged name tags on a table. Nothing dramatic happened. No music swelled. No one burst through a door. I just felt something inside me go very still. Jordan came over with a coil of cable around his arm. You okay? I handed him the headphones. He listened. His expression changed slowly, the joking part of him disappearing. When he took them off, he said, You need to save that. It's event audio. It's troubleshooting audio from a room mic during a work setup. Don't blast it online. Don't be stupid. But save the part that proves you're not imagining things. I exported the relevant clip and labeled it with the event name and time, exactly like I would any technical file. I didn't send it to anyone. I didn't text Marissa. I didn't confront Nate near the donor table. I finished the event. I adjusted microphones, cued walk-up music, and stood at the back while people applauded speeches about community arts funding. Marissa walked past me twice that night. The second time, she touched my elbow and said, We should talk tomorrow. I looked at her calm face, her perfect lipstick, the small gold hoops she wore when she wanted to look understated. Sure, I said. The next morning, I woke before the coffee grinder downstairs. Marissa was still asleep. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down. For a second, I had the old impulse to fix it privately, to ask her why, to give her a chance to explain in a way that made it hurt less. Instead, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. I started with practical things. Rent receipts, Venmo transfers, shared utilities, the security deposit, emails from Caleb, our property manager, our lease agreement in a folder named apartment stuff, because I have never been creative with file names. I found the lease first. Both names. Equal responsibility. No one could remove the other person without written agreement and management approval. Then I emailed Caleb. Hi Caleb. Can you confirm the process for one tenant moving out or being removed from the lease? I want to understand my obligations before making any decisions. He replied that afternoon. Hi Ethan. Both tenants must agree in writing to any lease change. As I mentioned to Marissa earlier this month, we cannot simply remove one tenant without consent and updated paperwork. Security deposit allocation would need to be settled between tenants unless both parties sign otherwise. I read the sentence twice. As I mentioned to Marissa earlier this month. Earlier this month was before the dinner. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the basil plant on the windowsill. One side of it had crisp brown at the edges. The other side still had small green leaves reaching toward the gray light. Marissa came into the kitchen wearing my black hoodie. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep. She poured coffee into her favorite mug, the one with the handle I fixed. About tonight. What's tonight? I think we should have everyone back over. Not dinner. Just to check in. I kept my face still. Everyone. The same group. I think it would help if you acknowledged how Saturday felt for me. There it was. The second gathering. The apology she expected to collect. I'll think about it, I said. She studied me. That means no. It means I'll think about it. She looked almost pleased, like my calmness confirmed something for her. Okay, but don't avoid it too long. People are worried. After she left for a coffee meeting, I called my mother. Linda lives outside Salem, in the same little house I grew up in, with wind chimes on the porch and a habit of answering the phone like she already knows something is wrong. Hi, honey. Hey, Mom. There was a pause. Oh no, she said. That's your trying to sound normal voice. I laughed once, but it didn't last. I told her the short version. Not every detail. Just enough. The dinner. The recording. The lease. She was quiet for a while, which made me more emotional than if she had immediately gotten angry. Finally, she said, Are you safe? Yeah. It's not like that. Okay. Then listen to me. You don't have to scream to leave. I rubbed my eyes. I'm not trying to make this bigger than it is, I said. Ethan, calm is good. Calm is not the same as consent. That hit harder than I expected. She continued, handle your paperwork. Keep your dignity. But don't keep handing someone the benefit of the doubt after they've shown you what they're doing with it. I didn't cry on the phone. I came close. Instead, I said, I don't know how I missed it. You didn't miss all of it, she said. You just kept hoping the good parts were the real parts. That night, I accepted Marissa's plan. Sunday, I said, same people, but I want to speak too. She looked relieved, which told me she thought I had folded. Of course, she said. That's all I wanted. On Saturday, while she was at brunch with Talia, I kept gathering documents. I made copies of rent payments and utility bills. I wrote down what I wanted. My half of the security deposit accounted for, shared bills split through the end of the month, no false story about me abandoning the lease, and a clean move-out plan. I didn't want the apartment anymore. That surprised me. A week earlier, losing it would have felt like losing the future. But after hearing Marissa talk about keeping it like it was a prize in a game, the place felt different. The creaky floors, the coffee smell, and the rain against the windows all felt like a set from a show that had already been canceled. Jordan came over Sunday afternoon to pick up a speaker stand he had left in my car, and I let him listen to the clip again. You sure about playing it? He asked. No, but I'm sure about not apologizing for a setup. Play only what matters, he said. Don't turn it into a spectacle. I know. He nodded. Then keep your voice boring. Boring wins. That was Jordan's entire emotional support style, blunt, practical, weirdly comforting. The gathering started at 6 p.m. Marissa called it a check-in, but she set out wine, crackers, grapes, and little bowls of olives like we were about to negotiate peace between countries. Talia arrived first, tense and pale. Ben and Priya came together. Nate arrived last again, no camera bag this time. The apartment felt too warm. The candle was back, cedar and orange peel. Rain tapped the window behind the table. Marissa stood near the kitchen counter and clasped her hands. Thank you for coming, she said. I know this isn't easy, but I think Ethan has had time to reflect. Everyone looked at me. For a moment, I felt the old pressure, the need to smooth it over, the instinct to say, I'm sorry you felt hurt, and hope that would be enough to buy peace. But peace bought that way always gets more expensive. I stood up from the chair by the window. I have reflected, I said. Before I apologize for anything, I need Marissa to explain what she meant by this. I took my phone out and played the clip. Not all of it. Just enough. Talia's voice. You said it was to help you two communicate. Marissa's voice. It was to make him break in front of witnesses. If he snapped or admitted he's been checked out, then no one questions why I'm done. Then the part about Caleb, the apartment, and keeping the deposit applied. Then I stopped it. The silence after that was completely different from the silence at the dinner. At the dinner, the silence had been pointed at me. This one had nowhere to go. Marissa's face lost color, then flushed. What is that? She said. It's audio from the charity event setup, I said. A room mic picked it up during equipment testing. Nate leaned back in his chair. I told you there was equipment. Marissa turned on him. Seriously? He held up both hands. Don't drag me into this. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that was Nate in one sentence. Close enough for the drama, far enough for the consequences. Ben looked at Marissa. You told us he had agreed to the dinner. I did agree to dinner, I said. I didn't agree to a group intervention. Priya's mouth was slightly open. Marissa, you said he'd been ignoring every attempt to talk. He had, Marissa snapped. I kept my voice level. Then give one clear example from before the dinner where you asked for a private conversation and I refused. She looked at me like she hated that I was calm. That's not fair, she said. It's very fair. Talia put her glass down. Her hand was shaking. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Marissa stared at her. Don't. Talia swallowed. No. I'm sorry. Ethan, she did talk to us before the dinner. She told us what to ask. I thought it was more like helping her stay on track. Not, she gestured weakly at my phone. Not that. Ben rubbed his forehead. We were told you knew this was going to be accountability focused. I didn't, I said. Priya looked embarrassed. I should have asked you directly. Marissa laughed, but it came out thin. Wow. So everyone's just turning on me now. No one's turning on you, I said. They're hearing you. That was the only sentence that made her go quiet. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a folder. My hands were steady, which felt almost strange. I'm not here to punish you, I said. I'm not posting anything. I'm not sending this around. I'm not interested in a public fight. But I'm done. Marissa's eyes flicked around the room, searching for the version of the audience she had expected. I continued. Caleb confirmed you asked about removing me from the lease before the first dinner. The lease requires both of us to agree in writing to any change. I'll move out by the end of next month if we settle the shared bills and security deposit fairly. I want everything in email. She folded her arms. So now you're making it about money. It was already about money when you planned to keep the apartment and the deposit while making me look like the reason. Nate stood. I'm going to go. Marissa turned to him. Of course you are. He looked uncomfortable for the first time since I'd known him. I'm not part of this. Talia looked at him and said, You were literally in the clip. He didn't answer. He left without saying goodbye. That broke something in the room, not dramatically, just practically. The performance was over. Nobody knew their lines anymore. Ben apologized before he left. It was awkward and too late, but I believed he meant it. I should have talked to you, he said at the door. Yeah, I said. You should have. Priya hugged me, then seemed unsure if that was okay, and stepped back. Talia stayed until last. Marissa sat on the couch staring at the blank TV, jaw tight. At the door, Talia said, I should have stopped it. I didn't let her off the hook, but I didn't crush her either. You should have, I said. She nodded. I know. After everyone left, Marissa and I stood in the apartment we had shared for almost 3 years. The candle had burned low. The basil plant sat between us on the table like a tired witness. You recorded me, she said. No. A room mic recorded audio during a work test. You were standing near it. That's convenient. So was inviting everyone here twice. Her eyes filled with tears then, real ones this time. Seeing them hurt. That annoyed me because some part of me still remembered the woman who left sticky notes on my lunch and wore my hoodie when she was cold. I wasn't happy, she said. I believe that. You didn't make me feel chosen. Maybe I failed you in some ways, I said. But you didn't try to end this honestly. You tried to manage the audience. She wiped her face quickly. I didn't know how else to do it. That's the problem. She looked down. I slept at Jordan's that night on an air mattress that deflated slowly until my hip touched the floor at around 4 a.m. It was still better than sleeping in that apartment. The next few weeks were uncomfortable, but clean in the way I needed them to be. Caleb handled the lease paperwork carefully. Marissa couldn't remove me without my signature, and I wouldn't sign anything until we had the money settled in writing. We agreed by email that I would move out at the end of April. She would either qualify for the apartment on her own or bring in a new roommate approved by management, and my half of the security deposit would be paid directly to me when the lease changed. Shared utilities were calculated down to the day. I sent Venmo requests with plain notes like March electric split and internet through move-out date. No emojis. No commentary. Marissa paid them late, but she paid them. The social fallout was quieter than a revenge fantasy and more realistic. Nobody made a public statement. Nobody applauded me. The group chat died. Priya texted me twice to apologize and then gave me space. Ben stopped making jokes at my expense. Talia sent one message that said, I'm sorry I helped make you feel cornered. I should have trusted my discomfort. I replied, thank you for saying that. Nate avoided events where he knew I'd be working for about a month. Eventually I saw him at a brewery fundraiser. He gave me a stiff nod from across the room. I nodded back and kept taping down cables. That was all he deserved from me. Marissa kept the apartment for 2 more months, then moved out anyway. I heard from Caleb because he emailed both of us about the final utility reconciliation. Apparently, she couldn't comfortably afford the place alone, and the roommate she had lined up backed out. I didn't feel happy about that. I just felt like the story had stopped bending around her. I moved into a smaller studio near Laurelhouse. It was not impressive. The kitchen had exactly one drawer that worked smoothly, and the bathroom fan sounded like a small aircraft. But it was mine. No one downstairs started grinding coffee before sunrise. Instead, an older guy across the courtyard played jazz on Sunday mornings, not too loud, just enough to drift through the window while I made eggs. The basil plant came with me. For a while, I thought it would die from the move, which felt a little too on the nose. But I trimmed the brown parts, changed the soil, and put it on the sill where it got actual light. New leaves came in small and bright. My life didn't transform overnight. I still worked late events. I still ate cereal for dinner sometimes. I I still had moments where I replayed old conversations and wondered why I had apologized so often for things I hadn't done. But the quiet in my apartment changed. It wasn't the tense quiet of someone waiting for a door to open or a phone to light up with another carefully worded accusation. It was just quiet. Rain on the window. A refrigerator hum. My own keys in my own bowl by the door. One night in June, after a wedding where the best man held the microphone like an ice cream cone and somehow still gave a decent toast, I came home with sore feet and a leftover cupcake wrapped in a napkin. I stood in my tiny kitchen, eating it over the sink, and realized I hadn't checked anyone's story, hadn't braced for a group chat, hadn't wondered how I was being described in a room I wasn't in. That was the part one kept. Not the recording, not the confrontation, not the look on Marissa's face when people finally heard her clearly. Just the simple fact that I no longer had to prove my heart to people who had already agreed not to see it. I put the cupcake wrapper in the trash, watered the basil, and went to bed without rehearsing an apology in my head. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.